Welcome to my channel. My name is Meiko. Sorry for wearing the mask. I hope it doesn't look too creepy. I just don't like to show my face, so sorry, but I hope you can get used to it. This is my first video, so before I get to the main point, I'd like to briefly introduce myself and talk about my plans for my channel. I am Japanese. I've loved manga since I was a kid, and for these few years, I've also enjoyed watching videos of non-Japanese people talking about Japanese manga and anime. Everyone is really passionate about their favorite manga and anime, and it's fun to watch them because sometimes I find that people cried at the exact same scene as I did, and other times I'm surprised that they were moved by something I hadn't even paid attention to at all. While watching those videos, I became interested in making some videos myself, and I came up with making a video explaining manga. I don't mean a video explaining interpretations like this panel implies this scene in the final episode, or presenting the backstories that the author has told in interviews and etc. Sorry if that is what you are looking for. What I am trying to do is explain from my perspective as a Japanese person. I have about three specific things to explain. The first is things that cannot be understood without a background in Japanese culture and Japanese common sense. For example, this is read as Taro. This is a person's name. Even if you are not Japanese, you might at least know that. However, a Japanese can tell that it is a man's name, that it is an old-fashioned name, often used as the name of the main character in Japanese folk tales, and that it is such a common name sometimes used as a template for documents. Also, if there were two brothers named Taro and Jiro, 99% of Japanese would suppose that Taro is the older brother and Jiro is the younger brother. And in fact, this is true more than 19% of the time. The reason we know that is because the first kanji in the name Jiro means second. I know it is difficult to reflect such things in translation. I'm not saying that you cannot enjoy Japanese manga if you do not know about Japanese common sense and many things like that. However, I think there are some things you can enjoy more if you know them. This is a bit off topic, but I really like the Harry Potter series. Unfortunately, I still haven't read Harry Potter in the original language, I mean English, but even if I did, it would be difficult for me to understand Harry Potter as well as someone from the UK. There are so many things I can't tell, such as whether the names of the characters are common names or rare names, whether the customs in the stories are actually customs in the UK or customs unique to the Harry Potter world, and so on. I find that kind of frustrating. So I would be very happy if there was a video explaining those things, and I thought there might be non-Japanese people who feel the same way about Japanese manga. The second is the expression techniques unique to the Japanese language. For example, the Japanese language uses three types of characters: kanji, hiragana, and katakana. Depending on which of these characters is used, the impression may change. For example, tomodachi, it means friends, is commonly written in kanji like this. If you write tomodachi in hiragana, it may give a more childlike impression. Writing tomodachi in katakana, depending on the context, may sound a little more meaningful or implied like friends, which means it may not be a real friend. I believe that some translators have probably picked up on such nuances of detailed expression techniques unique to the Japanese language and reflected them in the translations. If anyone notices the ingenuity of the translators after hearing my explanations, I would love to hear about it in the comments. The third and final one is proverbs, idioms, and other expressions that may become confusing if translated directly. For example, there is a Japanese proverb, neko ni koban. Neko is a cat, and koban is gold coins used in the Edo era in Japan. So a literal translation would be a koban for a cat. Can you guess what this means? The meaning of this proverb is that it is useless to give something valuable to someone who does not understand its value. Another proverb with a very similar meaning is buta ni shinju, literal translation, a pearl for a pig, which is almost the same proverb in English, or rather, the proverb casting pearls before swine seems to be the origin of the Japanese proverb buta ni shinju. Like this, in some cases, there is a corresponding proverb in another language, but of course there are cases where there is not. In such cases, it is up to the translator to use their skills. Although, even if there is a proverb with almost the same meaning, it doesn't solve everything. If there were only textual information like in a novel, it might be a little easier, but manga contains not only textual information, but also visual information. So what if there is a small illustration of a cat holding a koban in the funnel of the scene where the proverb neko ni koban appears? If you translate neko ni koban as casting pearls before swine in this case, you would be confused like, why cat here? It is difficult to satisfy both the accuracy of the meaning of the words and the connection with the illustration. In addition, neko ni koban is way obvious, but I'm sure that there are cases where a literal translation is made without realizing that it is a proverb or an idiom, or where a literal translation is unavoidable because the corresponding proverb does not exist in the target language, as said earlier. So I would like to explain proverbs and idioms as much as possible. These are the three main things I will cover in my videos. I must say upfront that since I am Japanese, I cannot point out all the things that would change when translated into other languages. Also, the only language I can speak even a little bit other than Japanese is English. So the standard for comparison will be Japanese and English. This means I can easily miss a lot of things because there are so many more languages than Japanese and English in the world. With all this in mind, I would appreciate it if you could add various perspectives by asking me questions in the comment section. Also, I'm not really good at English, so I use a translator, but sometimes it might result in wrong translations, so please read from my tone of voice in such cases. To be honest, I thought about using a machine voice, and I know that considering the pronunciation, it would be better because my English pronunciation is bad. But when I watched non-Japanese people's video, I didn't understand what they were saying completely, but thanks to their tone of voice and of course their facial expressions, I could catch the vibes. So I will try to do on my own voice. This introduction has become quite long, but before I get to the point, one more thing. I did not intend to represent all Japanese people. This is just my subjective opinion. Please listen with that in mind. Please do not take it too seriously. Okay? Now let me get to the point. I would like to give an explanation of one of my favorite manga, Hagane no Renkinjutsu, FULLMETAL ALCHEMIST. If you have not read FULLMETAL ALCHEMIST or watched the anime, you can watch this video, but for the upcoming videos in this series, please watch them after reading the manga or watching the anime, since they will contain spoilers. In this video, I will only explain the title of FULLMETAL ALCHEMIST and the name of its author. And from the next video on, I will explain the contents of the manga. First of all, let's talk about the title of FULLMETAL ALCHEMIST. The Japanese title is Hagane no Renkinjutsu. Hagane is actually steel in English. I don't know why they chose FULLMETAL instead of steel for the English title, but if you look back at this, the cover of the Japanese edition of the manga also has the notation FULLMETAL ALCHEMIST. So I'm not sure if it was the author or the editorial staff of the publisher, but it was certainly the Japanese site that made the decision. I think the reason they chose FULLMETAL is that the Japanese word Hagane is of course used to describe the material steel, but I think it is more often used in metaphorical expressions. For example, when we say Hagane no nikutai, steel body, it doesn't mean that the body is really made of steel, but rather that it is a strong body that has been trained like steel. Is it possible that steel is not often used as such a metaphor in English? It may seem a little strange, but in Japanese, when referring to steel as a material, the word tetsu, iron, is often used. Steel products are generally made of steel, but we use the word tetsu to describe it. Of course, Japanese people know that steel products are not made of pure iron, but for some reason we often use tetsu instead of hagane. Then why Hagane no Renkinjutsu and not Tetsu no Renkinjutsu? This is just my guess, but probably it is because it is a manga and not the real world. Since it is not used much in everyday life, Hagane sounds cooler to the Japanese than Tetsu. The kanji for Hagane is also cooler, isn't it? At least to me it is, but I think many Japanese would agree with me. Tetsu is also used to describe something tough and strong, but I personally feel that when Hagane is used, it also carries a sense of pride. Perhaps the English word fullmetal was chosen to express this nuance. I would like to hear the opinions and thoughts of native English speakers on the difference in impression between steel and fullmetal. I've talked enough about Hagane part in the title, but the Renkinjutsu part of the title is not especially worth explaining. Renkinjutsu means alchemist. That's it. In the title of the Japanese version, there is a hiragana no between the words Hagane and Renkinjutsu. This no plays the role of connecting the words and is often translated into English by using of. So if Hagane no Renkinjutsu was translated directly into English, it might be the alchemist of steel or something like that. If it had given this title, I wonder how it would have been received. No doesn't necessarily need to be reflected in the translation, so I think it was a good decision to ignore it. But I just wanted to take a moment to mention that because, in fact, almost all of the chapter titles in FULLMETAL ALCHEMIST contain no. The word no is used very often in Japanese for many purposes other than its English translation as of, and I won't go into detail because this is not a Japanese class, but the point is that It's not surprising that it's also used in many chapter titles, but when it is used in most chapter titles, it seems to be intentional. I'm not sure if the author does this because she is particular about it or because she makes it easier to come up with chapter titles by setting some rules. Personally, I think it is the latter. I just said that to tell you that in the Japanese version, even the chapter titles are slightly unified. I will also talk a bit about the title of the anime version. As some of you may know, FULLMETAL ALCHEMIST has been adapted into anime twice. The title of the first anime adaptation was Hagane no Renkin Jutsushi, just like the manga. And in English, it is also called FULLMETAL ALCHEMIST. This version of the anime caught up with the manga at one point, so from that point on, it is an original anime. It has gained a strong fan base, but I haven't watched it because it doesn't seem to be very much to my taste based on the little I know about it. The second anime adaptation mostly follows the storyline of the manga. To distinguish it from the previous one, the Japanese version was released with the subtitle Hagane no Renkin Jutsushi, Fullmetal Alchemist. However, if the same subtitle was used in the English title, it would be Fullmetal Alchemist, Fullmetal Alchemist, so Brotherhood was probably chosen for the English subtitle. I think it is a very good subtitle that reflects the theme, but that makes these things a bit complicated. Among Japanese fans, Hagane no Renkin Jutsushi is often shortened to Hagaren due to its length, and written as Hagaren in katakana or Hagaren in kanji. We barely write Hagaren in hiragana because it is a bit weird. Anyway, there are short names for the two anime as well, with the second one being called Hagaren FMA or Hagaren FA, taken from its subtitle. On the other hand, the first anime is called Hagaren Mujirushi, meaning no mark because it has no subtitle. Hagaren 2003 because of the year it was broadcast, and Q Hagane, which combines Hagane with the kanji Q, meaning old. As far as I know, among English-speaking fandom, the first anime is called FMA and the second one is called FMAB for short. So I thought this difference might cause some confusion. If you have the opportunity to interact with Japanese fans, you should note that the anime the Japanese call Hagaren FMA is not FMA, but FMAB to avoid any misunderstanding. That's all I have to say about the title. I would like to know how the manga and the two anime titles of FULLMETAL Alchemist are translated in other languages, so please let me know in the comments. The author of a manga is called mangaka in Japanese. The word mangaka is used as it is in some videos by non-Japanese people, so it seems to be widespread among people who like manga and anime, but just in case. From here, I will talk a bit about the name of the mangaka of FULLMETAL ALCHEMIST. I will not go into too much detail. If you want to know something like why the author chose the name or the origin of the family name itself, I'm sorry my video won't cover that. Mangaka often use pen names instead of their real names, Some of them use names that are obviously pen names, and some use names that seems to exist. But I feel that it is hard for non-Japanese to tell the difference, so I will explain which one it is. Even though names today are not necessarily as clearly distinguished as they were in the past due to increased diversity, there are so-called female names and male names among Japanese names. And there are also names that can be given to both men and women. Since it may be difficult for non-Japanese to understand this sense of gender, I will also briefly discuss the gender implied by the name. The author of FULLMETAL ALCHEMIST is Arakawa Hiromu. Arakawa is a family name and Hiromu is a given name. In short, both the name Arakawa and Hiromu seems to exist in a normal way, and it is hard to tell at first glance that they are pen names. It would not be surprising if someone else had the exact same name, and that's how common the name is. Although it doesn't seem to be the author's real name as far as I can tell from the stuff I could search. The author is a woman, but Hiromu is a rather man-like name in Japan. It could be a woman, but I think the name Hiromu would make people think of a man. It is not very rare for female mangaka who draw shonen manga whose main audience is boys, to use male names, while male mangaka who draw shoujo manga whose main audience is girls, to use female names. That's all for now. In this video, I talked about what I would like to do in my future videos and about the title of Hagane no Ren Genjutsu, Fullmetal Alchemist, and the name of the author of Fullmetal Alchemist. If you have any questions or could kindly tell me how it is done in your country, please leave them in the comments. I am especially interested in how FULLMETAL ALCHEMIST manga and the two anime titles are translated in other countries. As for my future plans, I would like to make two types of videos. One explaining each manga volume and the other explaining a specific topic. In the volume explanation videos, I will pick some scenes and explain them. I swear I have no intention to undermine the profits generated by the manga by telling you everything about the manga content, but since Japan is quite strict about copyrights, and I do not want to have to think about whether it is safe or not every time I do it, so I won't use screenshots of the panels. So it might be easier to understand if you watch the video with either a physical or digital manga at hand. Meanwhile, I will try to explain what kind of scene I am describing verbally. Next time I will explain about volume 1, so please be prepared. I hope to be able to upload a video every 2 weeks. I'm new to this, so I might not be able to upload that often until I get used to it, but I'll try. Thank you for watching so far. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!